EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back to another edition of Football 24/7. I'm Tone DeShields II, and I'm joined by our Eagles insider, John McMullen from JAKIB Sports and also from SI.com. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys continue to comment below, especially if you're watching this after the fact. Everybody can't watch it live. Some people got kids, some people got jobs. Anything can possibly happen that could prevent you from being in this live chat. So you can always double back and watch the live stream on your own time on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. Make sure you guys smash that like button as well, and make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel and check out more content from John on jakibsports.com. That's JAKIB sports.com and on SI.com as well. John, my friend, how are you doing today? I heard a lot of changes came your way.
Yeah, Eagles moved up. Practice was originally scheduled, I should say Eagles and Browns, since it's a dual joint practice. So they both make decisions. They moved it up. It was scheduled to be at 5. They moved it all the way up to 1:45 to beat some potential thunderstorms that were predicted for South Philadelphia. And boy, it was a hot and steamy one. You could tell storms are coming because it was humid, it was hot, it was humid, and it got chippy for the first time in the summer. And the Eagles really answered from what I would call a lackluster D1. They put a beat down on the Cleveland Browns today, to the point where some of the Cleveland reporters I was sitting with said, the Browns had no energy, no juice. They seemed content on their performance from day one, and the Eagles were the exact opposite. I think they were a little bit embarrassed by how they performed, and they just took them to the woodshed today.
Yeah, it made me think back to what you said yesterday, as a matter of fact, about how the practice sessions were, really close. It could have been a coin flip day, 51-49, so on and so forth. It wasn't as if either team ran away with it. So, for me at least, I really wonder why the Browns would be so satisfied with their performance yesterday when it was really closer than what they probably realized.
Well, the Browns have a lot of talent. I talked about a lot of talented players, but they haven't had success yet, really, at the level. The Eagles have kind of a swagger about them, coming off an NFC championship season and all the success they had. They kind of think of themselves as a good team.
Right.
The Browns aren't there yet from that perspective. So I think they're like, well, we handled one of the best teams in the NFL. You get that sort of air of content. That's what the Browns writer said. I kind of got the same feeling. Now, the guy who dominated basically day one, Myles Garrett, didn't work in team drills, so that played into it as well. He completely, if you could, you call defensive players game wreckers. He was a practice wrecker in day one. He wasn't out there in team drills. So that affects things as well. But from the Eagles' perspective, they were just juiced up because they were not happy the way they performed, particularly offensively. I don't think the Eagles' defense was bad at all on day one, and they've actually, they had back-to-back pretty good efforts, which is a positive sign. But the offense really struggled in day one, and they picked it up today.
Okay, let's stay there then, right? I want to get into both sides of the ball, but let's stay with offense here, right? I was hearing that, like you said, the Eagles pretty much dominated the day. But Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, their connection continues to, rear its beautiful head. And on top of that, Devontae Smith just appears to just continue to be giving guys problems. So walk us through your observations on the offensive side of the ball for the Philadelphia Eagles and how they were able to manipulate and take advantage of the lackluster effort by the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, it was a lot of red zone work today, and the Eagles were pretty effective. AJ had he drew a defensive pass interference on Emerson, one of their cornerbacks, and then he beat him on a fade, sort of a 50-50 throw the ball up, sort of that AJ is so dominant at. So he was successful on that. And Kenny Gainwell continues to be effective running the football inside the red zone. I've talked about him being the guy in high leverage situations, red zone, backed up, 2-minute hurry up, things like that. That continued today. He's been really effective. Even the second team with Marcus Mariota's really found something with Tyree Cleveland, dating back to the preseason game in Baltimore. They had a touchdown on a fade pattern that just ignited the Eagles sideline. They were going nuts. It was a great catch by Cleveland. And then it was, sort of a down 8 situation. So the Eagles had to go for 2, and Mariota went right back to Tyree Cleveland again on a quick out pattern. They converted the 2-point conversion as well. So, both the first team and the second team far more effective. And Landon Dickerson didn't practice today. He got banged up yesterday. Lane Johnson took some time off a little bit. He's fine, but Jack Driscoll was out there for at least a few reps. I saw him out there at right tackle. And I think the Eagles' offensive line specifically was not happy with the way they performed against Cleveland on day one, and they really ramped it up, though.
Who filled in for Landon Dickerson?
Suo Peta got the start, so to speak, and Josh Sills sort of mixed in as well. Okay. But Landon is fine. He was out there watching. It's not a serious injury. The injury, probably the biggest injury we didn't know about, Hassan Reddick hurt his thumb. He's going to be out for a while. And, arguably maybe the rest of the summer. The Eagles say, don't worry about it. He's not going to miss any regular season time. But it sounds like he's going to be out of practice for at least a little while. And he talked to us for a long time yesterday. He didn't seem in any obvious pain with the thumb, but evidently,
is it his right or his left? Which
don't know. Okay. Evidently, they found something. So they'll just take care of it and expect him for week 1. As far as, but I wouldn't. They're going to be. It's the Eagles in general. They're going to be extra cautious, and the silver lining to that is you get more reps for Nolan Smith as a young player. And even Jalen Carter. The one thing about Sean Desai, he keeps unveiling these I don't want to call them exotic looks, but curveball looks. For the second straight day, he had Jalen Carter lining up outside at times. He had James Bradbury in the slot and Zach McPherson outside at corner throw a little curveball. All the safeties rotating in. Reed Blankenship. By the way, I'm calling this the summer of Reed Blankenship. He had 2 more interceptions today. He intercepted Deshaun Watson 3 times over the 2 practices. He's just been tremendous. There's so many stars on that field. From Myles Garrett I talked about to, all the Eagles stars, but from Cleveland's perspective, they have a bunch of star players as well. And Reed Blankenship's been one of the best players on the field, arguably the second best. I'm giving Myles still the top because he was just outrageous, but he's been unbelievable. But next to him, the Eagles, Justin Evans got first team reps. Kayvon Wallace got first team reps. Terrell Edmonds continues to get the first. He starts sort of, and Sidney Brown. 4 players, but Reed Blankenship never leaves.
What have you been seeing differently from a Reed Blankenship now in comparison to when he first got here last season? Remember he was undrafted out of Middle Tennessee State. Safety U. Shout out to Kevin Byard with the Tennessee Titans. But, a guy like him, you don't really see, and that's not to say undrafted guys can't really make a name for themselves in this league, but he's beginning to come along rather quickly. And on top of that, you're clearly saying that this defensive staff has a lot of trust in him. So by your estimation, what are you seeing differently from a Reed Blankenship in comparison to his first training camp with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2022 up until now in 2023?
Well, he was, as you mentioned, he didn't get any reps at joint practices. Like the third string guys, they're playing in the preseason game on Thursday night. That's where they're playing. The first and second team are getting all the reps in these practices. And that's, how the Eagles have set it up, how the Browns have set it up, and they're going to play a bunch of the third string guys. Reed last year, he was fighting for the 53rd spot on the roster. He was a third string guy for the entirety of the summer. So you didn't even get to see him. Got to see him when C.J. Gardner-Johnson got hurt in season, and behind the scenes, he had slowly worked his way up. He passed Kayvon Wallace on the depth chart, and when they needed somebody, Denard Wilson, secondary coach at the time, said, nope, we're playing Reed. Reed deserves to play. So he had worked his way up incrementally. Sometimes the NFL misses. I covered John Randall for years. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He wasn't drafted when the draft was 12 rounds long. 12 rounds, they missed him because he was undersized. With Reed, he was a 5-year starter in college, and he's played a lot of football. He's very smart. He understands how to play. He's always in the right position, and he's making plays on Deshaun Watson consistently. He's a good football player, and that we're going to have the same discussions we had about TJ Edwards. Well, he's undrafted. They missed. And I'm talking about the NFL in general. And by the way, the Eagles missed too. They spent $5,000. Now they deserve credit, but even last year, if you look at the undrafted class, they gave a ton, $300,000 to Carson Strong. They gave $5,000 to Reed Blankenship. They didn't know.
Jeez.
How
does that math work? $5,000, man. Jeez, break that down for me.
Sometimes guys just need a chance, and the thing about undrafted guys, you might get a chance, and Reed got his, and you have to perform. You only get one chance. If you don't perform, they're taking you right off the field and they'll bury you again. And he, if you go to the PFF grades last year, he was the 9th ranked safety in the NFL. Number 9. And it wasn't a large sample size, but it wasn't a small sample size either. He played over 300 snaps, I think.
Yeah, CJ was down for what, 4 or 5 weeks, something like that?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty, in the thick of a season at that, that it may not have been the most snaps, but they were pretty high quality reps, I would say.
Yeah, and then remember at the end of the season, Avante got hurt, and instead of putting Josiah Scott back out there, they moved CJ to nickel corner when a nickel corner was called for, and they put Reed in at safety. So they had the moving parts. So that's how well he was playing last year, and he's only gotten better. Summer Reed Blankenship, you're going to start seeing 32 jerseys.
Have you seen
Kelly Green 32 jerseys?
Have you noticed a difference in him physically, not just from a football IQ perspective? Because I think that's something we've always noticed about him, right? Again, always being in the right place at the right time. But have you noticed anything physically, right? Does he look quicker? Is he challenging the ball carrier a little quicker? Is he downhill faster? Has he changed? Has his physique changed? Are you seeing anything just different with him physically?
No, he's always been. He got here. He was really, rock solid. He was not a guy with a lot to do body. He's a little bit older, which number one, the Eagles don't like. He's, as I mentioned, he's a 5-year starter, but he's 24.
Mm.
Because he played so much college ball. He's, over 200 pounds. As I said, he's very cut up to begin with. Maybe I think he ran a 4.55. Maybe he's improved in that aspect a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know why he didn't get drafted. It's insane he didn't get drafted because he was such a productive player at Middle Tennessee State.
Maybe that was the issue right there. Maybe it's the school, man.
Well, yeah, but you just mentioned Kevin Byard. I
Touché.
mean, do you not learn anything? It's not like when he came out of high school, I was talking to him, last year, he got some legit offers. I know Tennessee was middle Tennessee's where he ended up, as I said. I know he had a couple Big Ten schools. I know he said Minnesota. There was, I think Tulane was another one, Southern Miss. Not top tier Alabama programs, but legit Division I big programs. We're looking at him, and he went to Middle Tennessee partially because of Kevin Byard and their reputation. And he won a bunch of awards, at Middle Tennessee. So he performed at the college level. Yes, it's a smaller college. And yes, even with the Kevin Byard success, people aren't going to go, oh, well, let's go check out Middle Tennessee State. So that's definitely a part of it. But the NFL usually doesn't miss players like this. From that, I mean, if you look at his measurables, he's the Eagles' most impressive safety physically, from a size, weight standpoint. He ran a 4.55. I keep saying 4.55, which is not terrible. His vertical leap was not terrible. I can't explain why. Not only didn't he get drafted, but he only got 5,000 as an undrafted free agent. I can't explain it.
Some guys literally just slip through the cracks. Staying on the defensive side, other than Reed Blankenship, how was the trench play today? I know the defensive lines got the better of the offensive lines yesterday. But how are things in the trenches? How were guys like, Jalen Carter and Noah Smith and those guys? Who were some other standouts on the defense side of the ball, basically?
Yeah, I mean, the defensive line dominated again. Josh Sweat probably had 2 sacks, and I put that in quotations. He had another one today. Derek Barnett had a big rush on the second Reed Blankenship interception that forced Deshaun Watson to hurry a little bit. Jalen Carter lit up Joel Bitonio's an all-pro guard. He's starting to do that consistently, practice after practice. Jalen Carter's starting to show up.
Joel Bitonio's a multi-time all-pro, right?
Yeah, he's one of the best guards in the NFL.
That's saying something. I mean, the Eagles do put a lot of stock in these joint practices, right, John? So I mean, it's something to be said about that.
Well, anybody who doubts Jalen Carter's talent hasn't seen him play. I've been saying that since day one. When you see this kid, and you saw it in the first snap against Ben Cleveland, his ex-teammate, Eagles fans have seen one of the best defensive tackles of the generation for many years, Fletcher Cox. He's not what he once was, but that was an all-decade player in his prime. All-decade. NFL all-decade player. And one of the best defensive players in franchise history, Fletcher Cox. And I'm not saying Jalen Carter is going to be that good because there's a lot of things that come into that. But I will say he's got more talent than Fletcher Cox.
Wow.
He's got more talent than any defensive tackle since Aaron Donald. I'm not going Aaron Donald, but you can't block this kid.
Wow. Is this walk me through it, John? I mean, I understand he's a burly kid, he's strong, he's a freak athlete, but what is he doing technically that's allowing him to take advantage of all pros in this league right now?
Well, I don't even think he's necessarily there technically. He's just so quick at his size and his strength. I mean, he's like a blur. People can't get their hands on him.
Just a slippery dude.
He is. People are going to be thrilled when they see him play. Now, there's a lot of things. Conditioning has been an issue with the Georgia guys up front because they don't play a lot. Went through that with Jordan Davis, so that's part of it. We know the off the field stuff, but look, this kid would have been the first pick in the draft. He was regarded by most people in the NFL as the most talented player in this draft. And it wasn't particularly close with anybody else. The quarterbacks always get pushed up because they're quarterbacks, but none of those quarterbacks are close to Jalen Carter as a pure football player.
The most talented pound for pound. So you would say pound for pound, he was the best player in this draft.
Oh, yeah. Think about what happened, and he was still picked number 9. Typically, if that happens to somebody else.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, that was his fall. 1 or 2 to 9, which is, significant from a money standpoint, but somebody was going to take the kid. And, the fact that the NFL allowed this team to get him is astonishing to me. It will never not be astonishing. Chicago should be kicked out of the league for allowing him to get to Philadelphia.
That notion is always so interesting to me because part of me agrees with you, right? Most of me actually agrees with you. But then there's this part of me that says, did Chicago doubt their infrastructure? Did they doubt their team culture?
Ryan admitted that. Ryan Pace admitted that. He admitted, we couldn't take him. But Philadelphia can take him. They can afford it. Like Ryan Pace is going to be fired if he takes Jalen Carter and Jalen Carter does something. He's out the door. I talk about it all the time.
So self-preservation took over that draft for the Chicago Bears.
Part of it, and part of it is, it's sort of there's certain guys, and this is one of the advantage, how as good as Howie Roseman is, and I talk about it all the time, and, now fans are on the Howie bandwagon. They were saying some visceral things to me when I was telling them Howie was one of the best general managers in the NFL. And now it's gotten to the point where I feel I have to pull everybody back. Howie has certain advantages other GMs don't have. Most GMs can't take Jalen Carter. They can't. Howie doesn't have to worry about it. If he blows up, if he does something stupid, it's going to be ugly. Don't get me wrong. We're going to talk about it on Birds 365. We're going to talk about it here. It's going to be on Sports Talk Radio. He might get lambasted, but Jeffrey Lurie is going to chalk it up and say, all right, well, we made a mistake. Let's move on. Other guys get fired. That's the advantage Howie has that a lot of other GMs, not all, very few, probably 5, count them on one hand, have the kind of job security Howie Roseman has. And that helps when you're doing that job. Because if you're doing that job, as I call it, if you're GMing for your job, you're probably going to make some really bad decisions. And that's why most teams have GMs GMing for their job, just like coaches, and they tend to make bad decisions.
Yeah, that's why, you see certain teams, they just can't seem to figure it out, in the long term, because they're like, whoever takes the job over, and I'm not going to call out any specific teams, but, when a certain GM takes over a certain team situation, he automatically knows he has 2 years, maybe 3, to show something positive, right? When in reality, when you're dealing with a team like, okay, you said the Chicago Bears, right? A team that's been so down bad for so long, it's going to take more than just a 2 to 3 year fix, right? Like you buy certain houses, and okay, maybe you got to replace the toilet, maybe you got to replace a little drywall, so on and so forth. There are some people who buy legit fixer-uppers where you're not just replacing toilets, you're not just replacing drywall, you're replacing studs. And the Chicago Bears are a team where they needed to be ripped down at the studs, but it's impossible to do that when you don't really have the latitude.
Yeah, well, and yeah, I mean, and Ryan hasn't earned it. I mean, that's part of it. He's a young GM, and they tend to make mistakes. But he went into this draft with the worst defensive line in football, and he had an opportunity to take the best player in the draft, who happened to be a defensive lineman, not once but twice. And it's understandable you don't want to take him at number 1, coming off what he did,
right?
But when he's going to fall to you again at number 9, and you say, "Oh, no, thanks. We're going to take Darnell Wright at number 10. And they got something from the Eagles to move up 1 spot, but not much. And they end up taking Jervon Dexter in the 2nd round, who's a defensive lineman. I mean, that's a freaking joke. That's why I make fun of the Bears. You got to be kidding me. I mean,
sorry.
I mean, you're getting nothing against Darnell Wright, but that's not a 10th pick.
It's a safe pick. It's an extremely safe pick. And
it's not a safe pick. It's a dumb pick.
Wow.
It's an awful pick. You have the worst defensive line in football, and you have a chance to get the best defensive lineman in the draft, and you go, "Oh, I can't do that because I'm worried that he might get." And again, we're not talking about Al Capone. There are a lot of kids who do a bunch of bad crap, and he made a very big mistake, and I'm not trying to downplay it. He made a very big mistake.
I mean, he wasn't, like you said, he made a really big mistake, but it wasn't like he was selling crack out of his dorm room.
No,
like,
he wasn't,
I mean,
he wasn't getting consistently in trouble.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean, they didn't have the balls to do it. Bottom line. And I'm looking at Ryan Poles when I say that. You got to have the courage of your convictions to succeed in that job. Yeah, but the thing is, if it doesn't work and he gets fired, he's never going to get another GM job. So it's difficult to do. It's easier to be safe, but years down the road, and again, he went on a Chicago radio station and said, "The Eagles can afford to do it. I can't." He admitted it.
Hey, I respect the candor. I'll tell you that. Before we get out of here, John, we do you have any idea? Or I'll put it to you this way: after watching these 2 joint practices over the past couple of days, do you have a sense or a feeling for how this preseason matchup will go from a rotation perspective, from a lineup perspective for the Philadelphia Eagles? Who do you think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to dedicate more snaps to on either side of the ball? Or are there any names in particular that you may have in mind that you think maybe the Philadelphia Eagles want to get some more?
Why are we even talking about playing time? If the people haven't figured it out yet, nobody's playing. They got all their work in the joint practices.
Well, I don't mean the You're right, the starters, right? I'm not necessarily talking about the starters, but I'm more so talking about, are there any guys in particular that you think the Eagles are more so keyed in on? They need to see more from in particular. That's not necessarily starters. I should have probably
Well,
prefaced that.
there's guys, fighting for roster spots. I mean,
Or anybody you
everybody
want to
from.
see, right? Anybody you want to see more from.
Well, I'm interested. The only things I'm interested in are the running back situation because of
Okay.
what Nick said, and they haven't really nailed that down. Plus, they keep rotating linebackers and safeties. So, Reed's not going to play.
Right.
N'Kobe, it'll be interesting. Maybe they want to get him a few reps. Nicholas Morrow seems to be the first guy, but Zach Cunningham's coming on. He's been ahead of Miles Jack. He's making plays in practice. So Zach Cunningham is interesting to me. I think he might be the starter week 1 next to N'Kobe Dean if he continues to play like he's playing. Tyree Cleveland keeps making plays, made another big play today. He's been really good to the point you got to start looking at him for a roster spot because he's a good special teams player as well. And the Eagles need help there, especially with Sean Bradley being out for the year. So guys like that. Justin Evans is an interesting player because he gets first team reps and he might not even be on the team if he plays poorly in a preseason game. I guess fans will be excited to see Eli Ricks again because of the pick 6. To give you an example, I didn't see one rep from Eli Ricks, poor Eli Ricks, because third teamers weren't getting reps in these practices. It was all first and second team guys. So it's going to be a big Tanner McKee game and maybe a big redemption game for Ian Book.
We'll see. Well, we'll see. I would love to see Tanner again, but Ian, hopefully he can.
Well, he's got to play. He's got to play.
Yeah, you're right. He has to play. It's a foregone conclusion, but I'm definitely more thrilled to see what Tanner McKee can do in his second go around. Playing at some live action football.
This is why we got to get to the regular season because these preseason games are just getting worse and worse and worse. Man.
Oh man, make sure you guys smash that like button and continue to stay engaged on JAKIB Sports, man. We're giving you guys some pretty insightful sports talk and analysis here, especially with John being our Eagles insider, not only for SI.com but also for JAKIBsports.com as well. If you guys want more from John, check him out on JAKIBsports.com. He does great work there and also does great work on SI.com as well. I'm pretty sure he's going to have a lot more coming for you guys as well. So again, smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to JAKIB Sports as well. And if you're watching this live stream after the fact, if you weren't able to catch it live, that's quite all right. Make sure you guys smash that like button. We appreciate you guys as well. A view is still a view, and you guys are truly pivotal to the success of this YouTube channel. Though to the power of the people. I like to say that. John, before we get out of here, any updates for the Philadelphia Eagles in terms of scheduling? What's coming up next for you on JAKIBsports.com, SI.com? What are you working on? Just give us the full rundown of what's to come for you and for the Philadelphia Eagles.
You could see my daily practice observations at SI.com. Going to write about Terrell Edmonds trying to hold off Sidney Brown and Kayvon Wallace at that safety spot opposite Reed Blankenship, and also his sort of dual role because Terrell's the guy who plays linebacker when the Eagles use the big nickel package, which they've done quite a bit recently in day 1 too against Cleveland. They played it quite a bit. And the defense, by the way, pretty solid against Cleveland. A little surprised by that. So not the defensive line, but the back 7 is held up pretty well. Reed's a big part of that, but Terrell Edmonds is a big part of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Also I really enjoyed your article on Jordan Davis as well. I meant to bring that up earlier about him having that imposter syndrome. That was a pretty fascinating read. So yeah, once again, John, I always appreciate the work you do, man. You do tremendous work out there, covering the Philadelphia Eagles. You've been doing an amazing job for us here at JAKIB Sports. So make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. He's John McMullen. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II. You guys are locked in on Football 24/7. Take care, you guys, and we'll see you next time.
EAGLES, Eagles.